One invention that changed the face of war forever: gunpowder. Have you ever wondered what makes a firework burst into beautiful colors in the night sky, or what makes a cannon go boom? The answer is a special black powder called gunpowder. For over 1,000 years, this amazing invention has changed the world in many ways. It's a simple mixture, but its effects are, well, really powerful. Gunpowder is made from three main ingredients: saltpeter, which is a type of salt charcoal that comes from burnt wood, and sulfur, a yellow mineral. When these are mixed together in just the right way and a spark is added, they burn incredibly fast. This rapid burning creates a lot of hot gas, which expands really quickly and causes an explosion. It's this explosive force that has been used for everything from celebrations to changing the course of history. Before gunpowder, the world was a very different place. People fought battles with swords, spears, and bows and arrows. They built castles with thick stone walls to protect themselves from enemies. These walls were super strong and could keep armies out for a long time. The idea of a powder that could blast through these walls was like something from a fantasy story. Gunpowder was not just a new tool, it was a completely new kind of power. It changed the rules of how people interacted, how they built their cities, and especially how they fought their wars. The story of this black powder begins a long time ago, not with soldiers, but with ancient scientists who were looking for something else entirely. Their quest would accidentally create one of the most important inventions ever made. The science behind gunpowder is quite fascinating, even though its discovery was an accident. The key ingredient is saltpeter, also known as potassium nitrate. This substance provides the oxygen needed for the mixture to burn very quickly, even without air. The charcoal provides the carbon, which acts as the main fuel for the fire. Finally, the sulfur helps to lower the temperature needed for the mixture to ignite, making it easier to set off. It also increases the speed of the explosion. When these three are combined, they form an unstable but powerful mixture. A tiny spark or flame can start a chain reaction that releases a huge amount of energy in a fraction of a second. This is the secret behind its explosive power. Understanding this simple but powerful mixture is the first step to understanding its long and explosive history. The journey of gunpowder is a story of curiosity, accidents, and innovation. It shows how a simple chemical discovery could travel across the world and reshape civilizations. From the quiet laboratories of ancient China to the loud battlefields of Europe, gunpowder left its mark everywhere it went. It brought down castle walls, made old ways of fighting obsolete, and opened the door for new technologies and new kinds of armies. This simple black powder was not just a substance, it was a force of change that would echo through the centuries, making the world we live in today. The story of gunpowder begins in China more than 1,000 years ago, during the Tang dynasty. At that time, there were wise men called alchemists. These were not soldiers or weapon makers, they were more like scientists or doctors. Their main goal was to find a magical potion, an elixir of life that would allow people, especially the emperor, to live forever. They mixed all sorts of strange things together, heating them and combining them in different ways, hoping to unlock the secret to eternal life. They experimented with many minerals and plants, writing down their recipes and results carefully so that others could learn from their work. They were searching for a miracle that would stop death. One day, around the 9th century, some alchemists were mixing together saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur. They were not trying to make an explosion. They probably thought this mixture might have some special healing properties, but when they heated it, something unexpected happened. Instead of creating a life-giving potion, the mixture suddenly burst into flames and smoke with a loud bang. It was a surprising and probably scary moment for them. They had accidentally created the world's first gunpowder. They wrote about their discovery, warning others to be careful with this dangerous new mixture. They described it as fire medicine, or huoyao in Chinese, because it was made by doctors of a sort and involved fire. At first, the Chinese did not know what to do with this powerful new powder. They had found the opposite of what they were looking for. Instead of a potion for eternal life, they had a substance that could cause destruction and was very dangerous to handle. For a while they used it in small amounts for other purposes. Some people used it to create magical tricks to entertain the emperor and his court. Others found that it could be used as a medicine to treat some skin diseases and kill insects. It was a fascinating new discovery, but its true potential was not yet understood. The alchemists continued their search for the elixir of life, but their accidental invention would soon find a very different and much louder purpose. The early Chinese texts that mention this fire medicine are very important. They're like a birth certificate for gunpowder, proving that it was first created in China. One ancient text from around the year 850 AD clearly warns against mixing these specific ingredients. The author describes how the alchemists' hands and faces were burned, and even the whole house they were working in was burned down. This shows that right from the beginning, people knew that gunpowder was something to be respected and feared. This accidental discovery, born from a desire for immortality, was about to be turned into a tool of war, changing the world in ways the peaceful alchemists could never have imagined. After its discovery, the Chinese started to find new and more exciting uses for gunpowder. One of the first and most beautiful uses was for fireworks. They learned that by packing gunpowder into paper or bamboo tubes, they could create spectacular displays of light and sound for festivals and celebrations. The explosions that had once been a dangerous accident in a lab were now a source of joy and wonder. These early fireworks were not as complex as the ones we see today, but they were still amazing for people at the time. The loud bangs were also thought to scare away evil spirits, so fireworks became a very important part of many traditional Chinese holidays, a tradition that continues to this day. Soon, the clever military leaders of the Song dynasty in China realized that if gunpowder could make a loud noise, it could also be used in battle. They started to create simple weapons, and one of the first was the fire lance. This was basically a long spear made of bamboo that had a gunpowder-filled tube attached to the end. When a soldier lit the tube, it would shoot out a jet of fire and smoke towards the enemy. It was not very accurate and could not shoot very far, but it was terrifying. Imagine being a soldier facing a wall of fire and smoke. It was a powerful psychological weapon that could scare enemies and their horses, causing chaos and confusion on the battlefield. From the fire lance, the Chinese developed other early gunpowder weapons. They created simple bombs by filling pots or paper-wrapped containers with gunpowder and a fuse. These could be thrown by hand or launched from catapults into enemy ranks or against city walls. They also invented the first rockets by attaching gunpowder tubes to arrows. When lit, the gunpowder would propel the arrow through the air with great force, much further than a normal bow could shoot. These fire arrows were used in large numbers during battles, raining down on enemies from a distance and setting fire to their camps and ships. These were the first small steps towards modern rocket science. Slowly but surely, the technology improved. The Chinese weapon makers realized that if they made the tube of a fire lance stronger, perhaps out of metal instead of bamboo, and blocked one end, the exploding gas would have to push something out of the open end with incredible force. They started to put small rocks, pieces of metal and arrows inside the tubes. When the gunpowder exploded, it would shoot these projectiles out at high speed. This was the basic idea behind the first gun. It was a revolutionary concept that took the fire lance and turned it into a weapon that could actually shoot a bullet, marking the birth of firearms. The invention of guns and cannons completely changed how people fought wars. The knowledge of gunpowder eventually spread from China to the rest of the world, traveling along the Silk Road trade routes. By the 1300s, armies in the Middle East and Europe had learned how to make and use gunpowder. They began to build their own powerful weapons. European engineers became very good at making cannons. These were huge metal tubes, sometimes so big they needed dozens of oxen to move them. They could fire giant stone or metal balls with enough force to smash through the thick stone walls of castles, which had protected kings and nobles for centuries. This new technology made castles much less effective for defense. A castle that could once hold out against an army for months could now be destroyed in a matter of days or weeks. This changed the balance of power. Kings, who could afford to build many cannons, became much more powerful than local lords who relied on their castles for protection. It helped centralize power and create the larger nations we know today. Armies also had to change their tactics. They could no longer just hide behind high walls. They had to come out and fight in open fields, leading to bigger and more decisive battles than ever before. This was the beginning of a new era of warfare. Besides cannons, smaller guns were also developed for individual soldiers. These early guns, called muskets or arquebuses, were heavy, clumsy, and very slow to load. A soldier might only be able to fire 1 or 2 shots in a minute, while a skilled archer could shoot many arrows in the same amount of time. However, the gun had a big advantage. It did not take years of training to learn how to use it. A new recruit could be taught to fire a musket in a few weeks, whereas becoming a good archer took a lifetime of practice. This meant that kings could raise large armies of musketeers very quickly, changing the size and makeup of armies forever. In conclusion, the accidental discovery of gunpowder by Chinese alchemists was one of the most important inventions in human history. It started as a search for eternal life, but ended up creating a powerful tool of destruction. From fireworks to fire lances, and then to cannons and guns, gunpowder transformed warfare. It brought an end to the age of castles and knights in shining armor, and began a new age of firearms and powerful armies. The boom of the first gunpowder explosion in a small laboratory in China created echoes that would travel across the globe, shaping the course of history and changing the world in ways that no one could have predicted.